Maahs Jr. I live here in Wilmington, Delaware. Um, Quick story about me. I had a diving accident when I was 18, broke my neck and became paralyzed from the chest down. And this was 10 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act. Spent 7 months in rehab. And when I got out, quickly realized the world wasn't built for people like me. So spent 30 years in corporate with a couple of big companies and all the while traveling all around the world, part of my job, and experiencing accessibility in just about every way you can imagine, and not accessibility, things that weren't accessible. So in 2019, I decided to leave corporate and really devote my full time, my passion, to helping to change the world for people, for all people, to make it an inclusive world and to make sure that everybody can get out and travel and explore everything. So um, the way that I got into the middle of that forest, Lorraine, which you can't actually see from the angle of the the shot, there are some dirt trails through that forest. It was a beautiful shot in Hawaii. We filmed our first episode of our accessible travel series in the Hawaiian Islands last May, on three separate islands, and we premiered that episode in November, as part of Journeyable. We started Journeyable, our organization, our company, in January of 2022. It's still evolving, but excited about what it's become, and truly, uh, we're building a community, and we invite all of you to join this community. Just go to journeyable.org, and you can navigate the website and join our community. And essentially, uh, we realize that accessibility and disability, in all its forms, impacts literally everyone in the world. And so our mission is to bring everyone together in our community to provide them with the resources that they need, literally, to be able to travel and explore the world and really uh, use our platform, as a resource. So we've brought together some of the world's leading nonprofit organizations and other companies, to provide resources and information. Some of the world's most known experts in the disability and accessibility community. And we continue to build that out, as well as lots of travel bloggers, accessible travel bloggers and writers, who can share their stories, and become a resource for people who are looking for answers, looking for maybe inspiration to say, geez, I can do that. So um, it's interesting. Plus, we're also bringing the supplier side to it. So we provide. So when people read all of this wonderful content and they visit the community, join the community, and they want to just get out there and explore, we also provide resources. We're not a booking engine, but we provide resources for people to choose what agency, what agent is best suited for their needs, to again, uh, to book that just wonderful trip for themselves, and to get out there and explore the world. And I'm just happy to be able to be here today and join Susanna Lorraine in this conversation around why it's important. Why is inclusive travel? Why is inclusive travel resources important for not just people with disabilities, but really for everyone?
All right, so good way to segue then to our first question that I want to make sure, Fred, that both you and Lorraine, kind of share your thoughts on why is it important for us to be inclusive and accessible?
Sure. So Lorraine, you want to start and I'll jump in?
Now, I mean, do we have enough time?
Yeah.
Because it's about all of us. We tend to be a society that is all about oneself, and what where are we in our life? And, and are there services and opportunities for us to participate in all aspects of life? And in the travel industry, it hasn't always addressed the needs of those of us with disabilities, those of us who might have a short-term disability because of an accident, but yet we need this. And by sharing information and knowing that, oh, wow, that restaurant has a ramp so we can go to that restaurant, it makes our life experience more positive and inclusive. When that information is not available, sometimes, and you go to that restaurant, like I have a favorite restaurant in Curry Beach, North Carolina, great Italian place. And they have this large step to get into the restaurant, which precludes me, and they don't have a portable ramp. And so the first time they let me go through the kitchen, which was really fun. And I'm like, all right, this is pretty good. I didn't know that when they do pasta. So here's a secret on the restaurant. They put it in like these little Ziploc bags that's cooked pasta. And then they put the plastic bag in a pot of water to heat it up. And then they can dump it out to put their meatballs on or their sauce. I thought it was pretty cool. So really great food. Love their salad dressing. Delicious. So we go back again. And they said, you can't go through the kitchen. And it's like, well, that's a bummer. And so I went and brought them a ramp. Well, their sidewalk was only like 4 feet long. And so the sidewalk then went to the curb of the parking area, which was another step. It didn't work. And I was really, it's like, man, I really want to come to your restaurant. And they didn't do carry out at the time. And it's those experiences that from a family, it's like, great, here it is, 6 o'clock in the summer on a Saturday night. All the restaurants are full. We had our heart set on this. And if we had that information, then maybe we wouldn't have that experience. And so good experience, bad experience, it is about the, sharing of that information that is so important so that all of us can enjoy those travel experiences that we want. And I totally believe I got off subject, which I usually, Fred, I do.
It's okay.
I know.
So to add to that, Lorraine, the interesting thing is that there are so many myths and stigmas attached to the disability community, right? So the interesting thing, though, is that people with disabilities have money to spend. They want to travel. In fact, in a recent study that was put out, the disability community has $13 trillion of disposable income, but they're only spending about 43% of that. And the reason for that is because either of the lack of information about what's accessible or the fact that things just aren't accessible. And when I'm speaking with governments or businesses around the world, and I'm talking about, why you should be inclusive, why you should be accessible, they typically really start to listen when I start to mention the dollars and cents. And for them, as a business, as a revenue stream, even 1% of that in many cases can really make a difference to a destination. So they really pay attention to that. And think of it this way. Even when I'm speaking with DMCs around the world, right? And they're thinking, they're putting on lots of events and you name it. If you have a family, let's say someone is having a big wedding event and it's in Greece and they've invited all of their guests, 120 guests, to come to Greece and celebrate their wedding with them. Well, there's a very good chance that a percentage of those invited guests have some type of disability, or maybe their spouse or family member, which means they're going to need accessible accommodations. Probably overlooked by the event planner. and most of the event planners that I've spoken with, accessibility isn't even on their radar. So now all of a sudden, the invited guests, who are supposed to be coming to the wedding can't go because they don't have accessible accommodations, accessible transportation, you name it. And so we start to have impact on family members and others in many different ways. It can happen in lots of ways. And as you said, Lorraine, lots of places that don't make things accessible, or even the places that do, don't provide enough information out there to attract the disability community or people who need any type of accommodation. Just are left out. And we have to change that. We have to change it on our side with better education and information. And we have to show people that it's much more important to be inclusive and welcome everyone, regardless of ability.
Mhm.
And so, when destinations or resorts or businesses, when they talk about, we're a sustainable entity, and then I talk to them about their sustainable business model and help them realize that statistically at the age of 55, people start to encounter something, whether it's getting up the stairs is a little bit harder, or maybe they're having trouble hearing something or seeing something, whatever it might be. Statistically, people at 55 around the world start to, have some type of issue, some type of condition, maybe a disability. So if businesses and restaurants are not accommodating the aging population, what they're actually doing is saying, okay, you've been coming to our place for all these years, but now that you're 55 or older and have this condition or disability or something you're faced with, thanks for coming. You're no longer welcome because we're not accessible and we can't accommodate you. Um, and there's a real business case for all of those entities to say, we need to make changes. We need to welcome everyone. We want that repeat customer because they're so loyal. So yeah, could go on for hours on this, Lorraine,
Well, I
Suzanne.
know it's, bottom line, it's good business, and I know that when we sold one of our houses before, the accessibility features opened up the market that anybody could buy our house. If you had a disability, you could buy our house. If you didn't have a disability, you could buy our house. And one of the things that, I like to talk about also is the visitability. A reporter recently asked me, Lorraine, what is the one thing you dislike the most about having a disability? And I said, when the boys were young, I never was that mom that could hang out with the other moms at the birthday party. Now the boys are in college and I'm that mom that can't go to the neighborhood block party or the backyard party or go have a cup of coffee. And it's that visitability. And so what accessibility does is really brings us all together, that with it, we all can do things together. Without it, we're limited. And so, yes, it's good business and it's good community. Again, knowing that I can get to the ice cream place. In fact, at Carolina Beach, the ice cream place was 2 blocks from my house, but there was not a curb cut. And so that means I had to cross a busy street, go down the sidewalk, cross another busy street to get to the ice cream place. And so now we've got them to put in the county, the city council had no idea. And so they have in their budget to do certain things for the community. And again, that information allowed me to make sure I could go get my ice cream very safely. And so now moms with strollers, can go down that one side of the street, and get their ice cream, their sorbet. And and again, it just opens it up and it does become welcoming. And we all want to feel included. And that's what accessibility does for all of us.
Exactly.
Let's pivot just a minute and let's talk about something that might be a bit, I don't even know what to say. But there's a stigma attached sometimes to people with disabilities that I'm sure each of you can speak to, because I'm sure you've either felt things or heard things or seen things that, some of us would cringe at, others are oblivious. So can you speak to that just a little bit? Fred, you want to start?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, we can go in a million directions here. Um, I'll give you one quick example. And I actually mentioned this in the video that we didn't see. Um, so when I first had my accident, like within the first week of my accident, the doctors kept focusing on what I could not do because I was paralyzed. They kept saying, by the book, you shouldn't be able to. By the book, and at literally by the end of the first week, I finally told my neurologist, my orthopedic surgeon, I said, look, throw away the damn book. Let's talk about what I can do and what I want to do, and let's focus on that, right? So there is this stigma attached to the disability community that, oh, they can't, or they don't want to, or they shouldn't. When in actuality, we probably all do want to, you know. So why not ask us? Why not make the assumption, or why make the assumption, and have that opinion or that um, stigma, or in some cases, discriminatory um, thoughts. Um, just ask. Just ask. What would you like to do? How can I help you? What are your hopes and dreams? And let's break down those attitudinal barriers that, of course, the ADA can't address and doesn't address. Um, and let's break down those stigmas, and let's be more of an inclusive community, and more of an inclusive society, where we accept people for what we are, what we can do, and not focus on, you know, what people can't do.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Fred. I think, a couple of things that come to my mind is when we started becoming, well, actually, when I had our first short-term rental in 2015, and there was an idea, well, why are you designing this for people with disabilities? They don't have money, that they can't afford to stay in a short-term rental. So this idea of that there's not the revenue, because they may not have the dreams, they don't have the job. And that was interesting. Now, my son introduced an idea that as a mom, I was heartbroken about, and that was his stigma on his intellect. He has a physical disability, and he feels that people see that because he's physically weak, that he's emotionally weak, and that his intelligence is less. And that really has been a driving force in his finishing his PhD this year, because he wanted, and it was important for him not to be perceived in that way. And I never thought about the intellect, but I do think that, I see it when Robert and I may be going out to somewhere, and the communication is not directed to me, but more, what would she like? And it's like they find out very quickly I have a voice, and use it. But I do think that, there are these unseen aspects to each of us about our disability, in that if you're in a wheelchair, then physically you're not able to ever stand up. It's like, oh, then that means you can't stand up. So when I had an event in Washington, D.C., where at the time in the 80s, a number of professional in this case, it was a football player who adopted a disability to see what it was like. And his name is Lawrence Taylor. And so Lawrence we were in DC talking to congressmen, and he decided to be cute. And he was rolling across the street. He stopped. He stood up and said, "I'm healed. I'm healed. Look at me. I can stand up," which brought about a lot of different media and comments and perspectives. But for me, it brought about the importance of education that we're not quote unquote bound to a wheelchair, that we use the wheelchair for a lot of different reasons. I used it, I started with the scooter because I couldn't walk long distance, and so it allowed me to go shopping for hours. My friends are like, "Lorraine, can we please stop shopping? I'm exhausted." I was fine, because I'm using my scooter. And then there are those of us who physically can't get out of it as often as we would like. And then when we do transfer out, it's like, wow, you can do that. So it's very interesting, the depth of our experience and how people perceive who we are. And I do say a lot of times, life is such an illusion. And in the world of disability, I think we do see that a lot.
Yeah, thank you
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
saying that too, because there's a lot of, you two and others have what we might refer to as seen disabilities. But let's talk about the unseen, some of those unseen disabilities. Fred, what do you want to say about that?
So this always really puzzles me. When people hear the word disability, I would bet the first image that comes to their mind is typically someone in a wheelchair. You know, um, I'm a strong proponent of changing the international sign for disability of the white outline of a person in a wheelchair with the blue background. I don't think it fairly represents the disability community, especially when 80% 80% of disabilities are unseen. So think about that. There's a, if 80% of the reported 1.4 billion with a B people in the world have an unseen disability, there's a huge that huge population of people are faced with so many stigmas, so many things that are attached to them, so many ways that they feel that they have to explain themselves, or and just things that really are unfortunate, that um, people attach to them, and we have to do, again, we have to do a better job of educating the general population about this, because I will guarantee you most people who do not have a disability are not aware that the majority of people with disabilities have a disability that you can't see, whether it's epilepsy or some other type of unseen disability. We have to do a better job of educating and informing. And again, going back to this idea that as a society, as a global society, we need to accept people, no matter what their differences, no matter what their abilities, no matter what part of their demographic is. We're people first. At the end of all the other labels come second, but we are people first.
You're absolutely right, Fred. I think that that is key to what we're doing. This conference is put on as welcoming all. And how do we do that? And the onus is on all of us. It's on Becoming Rentable, to make sure that the work that we do isn't just specific to our mobility wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, and canes, but it is cognitive. And what does that equal? And that equals, mental health. It equals autism. It equals dementia. And then we have our hearing and vision, as well. And what we do is to be sensitized to that. I know at Becoming Rentable, I may make a comment about a font size, a color, contrast. And are we including this? And again, it's that inclusion of all of us. Are we creating materials that visually can be seen by people of low vision? Are we including language? So many times we like to use these fancy words. And I use an example of zero threshold entry. To me, that's a big mouthful, and it just means there's no steps. There's not this mountain of bump to get through a door.
Right.
And, we just need to be aware of that. And I think that, Journeyable is here to help create that change as we are. We're specific to short-term rentals, but I think all of us in our activities, in going to church, joining a club, going to a restaurant, and being sensitized to that, and recognizing when, particularly like a restaurant or an amusement park has a sensory room, to say thank you for doing that. I might not need it, but there are people who do. And for that reason, I thank you. And to let everybody know that you're recognizing their efforts to create that change and feeling that welcome.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Like, I think it's just so difficult, I think, sometimes for us to really grasp, unseen disabilities. And thank you for your statistic there too, that 80% of the people, have something or will have something in their lifetime,
There was a statistic, and Fred, and you might know if this is still accurate, that 9 out of 10 of us will have a disability in our lifetime. I feel like now it's like 10 out of 10, but back in the day, at least, I remember it being 9 out of 10 through accident, injury, short-term or long-term. Do you know if that statistic is still accurate?
I would say it's probably even higher. Um, if we were to look at, other statistics as well, I mean, statistically, people are living longer. So we're a growing and aging population. And again, if we go back to this notion that once we reach the age of 55, statistically, everyone will experience something. So, and frankly, again, I go, this is the whole premise behind, our company, Journeyable. We approach, that disability and accessibility, et cetera, impacts everyone in the world, not just people with disabilities, but literally impacts everyone in the world in one way or another. And that's why we've built this community, to share knowledge and information. We continue to invite people to join our community, and really want to be the resource. Too many times, even now, when I travel, and Lorraine, you may experience this as well, you have to sometimes do weeks and weeks of research to find out, depending on where you're going, what the best accessible hotel is, where the accessible transportation is, the accessible activities and events and venues, and you name it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to, and we've done a great job under the umbrella of Journeyable, is to invite destinations and suppliers and the disability community and others to come together and share that information. So it's a resource that people can go to versus, spending days or weeks on Google and other search engines trying to find that information and trying to learn from others who have made those trips and others who have different types of disabilities and can share, their stories, and people can learn from them and actually even be contacted. in our community. They can connect directly with each other and ask questions or share information. So yeah, it really does, Lorraine. We're a global connected community in one way or another. Um, and again, I think first and foremost, we're people, and all the other stuff comes second.
So I have a question for you, Fred. So, I'm seeing a lot on accessible air travel.
Yes.
And obviously I see a lot in the hotel industry with mapping that Will the World is doing. Obviously, we've got the short-term rental industry with becoming rentable. With the work that you all are doing, where are you seeing the conversations around? Is it the invisible disabilities? Is it still mobility? Is it air travel? In the hospitality industry, where are you seeing either conversation or movement and change?
I, I, I think it depends a lot on geography, sometimes because of, um, like many things, unfortunately, it comes down to uh, money and resources to to make that change, to be able to make that change. However, that said, let's start with air travel. A lot of focus lately on helping to change the airline industry as far as rules and regulations that have been in place and are going to be changed again when airlines have damaged wheelchairs or other mobility devices, right? So tens of thousands every year, wheelchairs, walkers, scooters, and wheelchairs, both manual and powered, um, are literally damaged or destroyed by airlines because of the lack of, uh, I really want to say, the lack of care or responsibility for how they're handled and stowed, under the plane. So new rules and regs coming out there. There's been a real heavy push by people with disabilities to be able to take their own chair and use it on the plane. Um, so I believe Delta and United are working to make some adaptations to some of their planes and test that out in the very near future by having adapted seating in the front of the plane, so people can take their chair directly onto the plane. We still have the issue of accessible bathrooms on a plane. Um, I can tell you in all of my years of traveling by plane, since my accident, it's this very regimented schedule before a trip, especially on long flights if I'm flying to the Middle East or Europe or somewhere, else, um, where you're limiting your liquid intake, uh, literally for a day or two before. You're limiting your food intake a day or two before because you cannot use the bathroom on an airplane. The flight attendants on a plane are not permitted to help you, uh, transfer inside to the bathroom if you're able to even get to the bathroom. So airlines are trying to figure that out as well. I don't think it's going to be anywhere in the near future because they're primarily focused on uh, getting butts in seats, more people on the plane. That's why the width of the seats have, it just seems each year they become narrower and narrower. They want to fit more people in a plane. So we'll see if that changes. As far as hotel accommodations, and other, resorts, et cetera, I will say that many are paying much more attention to accessibility, and not just from a mobility perspective. Um, there are resorts and hotels that are paying more attention to intellectual, developmental disabilities, people on the spectrum, et cetera. Um, you know, Providing a quiet space for people who need it, providing a special sensory room for people who need it. Again, you've got to do your research. You've got to, literally find out, by contacting these hotels, or in the very near future, you'll be able to come to Journeyable and find out that, which hotels offer these accommodations, which businesses, restaurants, other venues offer these types of accommodations. I think as we get better as a community, again, with sharing information, it, even our own experiences, the better it's going to be for people who need them. And then it becomes peer pressure when one hotel is doing it and another isn't. People have to catch up. So competition to be more inclusive is going to become more precedent as well.
I hope so. I'm curious, going back to the airline, do you really think it's going to be a few years? I had heard one report from Delta that it was going to take them 10 years to get the new seating in place.
I don't think it's going to take 10 years for the new seating. In fact, what I heard was they're going to be in a test phase very soon. And I don't think it's going to take 10 years. Maybe to outfit their entire fleet, it might take 10 years. But I think that they're going to make some really good headway into their fleet in the very near future.
Well, again, for somebody in a wheelchair and have been dropped more times than not, that is very exciting to be able to travel like that. Just the anxiety of, that alone sometimes is a stopper for me. Well, it was. I was supposed to go to Canada, and the bathroom issue was one, because it was such a long flight. And then the afraid of falling. I'm not anymore, because I have a great product called the Perfect Lift. A shout out to my friends there, that I feel very safe in transferring. So I'm anxious for that, and happy to see we are seeing, I think, even in airlines, more sensitivity to our autism community and being on the
Yes.
spectrum. And that's very encouraging.
Yeah, there are organizations and some of the experts that have joined our community at Journeyable who provide training and education to airports and airlines around the world, and not just the people at the gate, but literally TSA agents, people at the concessions, the police, the ground crew, etc. And the onus is obviously on the airport to employ these organizations, but I think there's been a much better job of that training happening, and will continue to happen.
So we have a question from somebody that's in the attendance here. So some short-term rental owners are scared of the ADA and liability, and saying that they are accessible, but what if somebody gets hurt?
Well, from our perspective at becoming rentable, we address that as you would any guest in looking at an accident. And I have not had an accident in 10 years at either of our short-term rental properties. Now, my neighbor, who is not accessible for mobility, she's had many accidents of people falling down the steps, from doors being broken, primarily due to alcohol, influence of alcohol. And not to say that people with disabilities don't have that, but as far as a percentage of our renters having an accident because of their disability has not occurred. And I would bring about, I would have to do my research in finding out what the average, injury is in the short-term rental, and just be a part of that and not be excluded or pulled out on the mere sake of that I have a disability.
That's a very good point. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
Fred, anything else you would want to add to that question?
No, I think again, when people are looking for information, um, if we want to specifically speak about the accidents and falling thing, I think the more we embrace a universal design, more accessible design, I actually think the less accidents we're going to have, as Lorraine's saying. It's when barriers are put in front of us that preclude us from doing something that typically accidents will happen. So, yeah, I think more likely to have less if things are built, um, from an inclusive and universal design.
And it's all too on the individual. I know for me, we were at a park when the boys were younger, and I wanted to get over to a particular area. I knew it wasn't safe. It was like a little bit of a hill, but I could do it. I was fine. So I'm wheeling along this hill, and what happens? I fall over. Well, that's on me because I was taking that chance because I'm invincible and I could do it. And I couldn't. And it was on nobody else. And so when those barriers or situations are in front of us, sometimes we just need to own them that we did it, not in particular of anything else, but because of the choices that we make.
That's
And
right.
some are choices and others are not. And when we are not aware of what makes something accessible, Fred, you're right. That's when we do see those accidents. And that's the beauty of, I'm a huge proponent of universal design. I had the privilege of working with Ronald Mace back in the 90s, who's the father of and creator of universal design out of NC State. And he taught me so much. And again, as we look at, what we're doing about full inclusion, it's again creating those products, those environments that are accessible to all of us. And so I hope that through the work that both Fred and Journeyable and what we're doing will open up this awareness that it's beneficial to all of us to have these designs, these products, these whatever they might be, available to us.
And we will.
There we go.
I love it. All right. So I believe I figured out what I did wrong earlier with the video. I want to make sure that people get to see that. So I am going to try that again. If you're all okay and can be patient, you can, talk for just a minute, but I'm going to give that a try.
Well, when in doubt, try again. So
I don't mind trying again. I don't mind saying that, yeah. Well,
so Fred,
I
what's
didn't
the
get
next
that right.
announcement from Journeyable that you all are doing?
Stay tuned for our mobile app and some other. I can't say everything, but some other big announcements. But again, invite all of you to come to our website, Journeyable, JOURNEYABLE.org, and join our community. We want to welcome everyone to this community, and um, you'll meet other people. You'll be able to share stories. You'll learn from other people. You'll find resources, etc. And um, it's actually I pinch myself every day. It just continues to get bigger and bigger, and that's what we want. We want people to collaborate. We don't want people to work in silos. And the more we can collaborate and share and work together, the easier it's going to be for everyone.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that. I know Jennifer Springer, part of our team, is clapping her hands, going because that technology is key for us as we grow, and we're looking at accessibility, and having that mobile app is, I've heard, a great game changer. We're not there yet, but we're working towards that. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So apparently I did not have it figured out. There's supposed to be some kind of button here that I can
It's
do the share
actually,
sound.
yeah, it is right before you get here. When you go to share screen,
Yep. Yeah, there was
on the
supposed to be.
item, okay, on the
Yep.
right bottom is a button there. We're
I'm
gonna
gonna
get
try
it,
one.
Suzanne.
I'm gonna try one more time
All
because
right.
there is no, oh, here it is, of course.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I gotta open that window again, but there I finally saw the button.
I only know that because for weeks I would hear Lorraine, no sound. I'm hearing the sound just fine, but people over Zoom weren't finding the sound. And now that's how I know.
All right. So let me
I hope the
hit
video
pause.
doesn't disappoint after all of this suspense.
It doesn't. I've seen it multiple times.
It never, I know. That's why I'm like, I got to play this.
And
All
you
right.
notice I don't have one because I can't compare to what Fred has, and it's
Oh,
exceptional.
it took a great team.
It always
All
does.
right. Let's try this again.
I'm Fred Maahs Jr. Growing up, I always had an adventurous spirit, wanting to do and learn things independently. At the age of 18, I was on vacation with my family, just days before starting my first year of college. I dove into shallow water and broke my neck, instantly paralyzed from the chest down. During the first week after my accident, the doctors focused on what I couldn't do. Well, I thought differently. I got tired of hearing what they were saying, so I told them, let's throw away the book and focus on what I can do and want to do. I quickly realized the world wasn't built for people like me. I traveled the globe during my corporate career and experienced accessibility in just about every form. I knew then that I had to use my platform to make the world a better, more accessible place for all. At times, life isn't always easy. When I need assistance when traveling, or even navigating new terrain, people will show up when you least expect it. I may do things a little bit differently these days, but I'm constantly reminded that I have the power to choose how I experience life. I am empowered by my independence, my desire to explore, and to show others that so many things in life are possible. I hope to show that no matter our circumstances, we all have the power to enjoy any beautiful experience of life, even if we need a little help now and then.
All right. That was inspiring. Thank you for bearing with me while I was able to finally get that going. So,
Fred, were you nervous about going in a helicopter?
No,
uh-oh.
no. The funny thing is, I love heights and speed, so always
Oh,
have. Um, so my very first helicopter experience was actually in Myrtle Beach, in a little two-seater tourist helicopter. Um, I didn't know until actually in flight where the pilot says he was an ex-Marine from Vietnam, and he wanted to do a couple of special things, and I'm like, oh, what does this mean?
yeah.
So we started diving over tops of fields and trees and stuff, which was thrilling. But no, loved the whole helicopter experience. Would do it in a heartbeat again. It's just beautiful. So for anyone, if you get the chance to go to the Hawaiian Islands, Blue Hawaiian Helicopters is on each of the Hawaiian Islands. Their staff is trained to work with all different types of disabilities, which was fabulous. They also, as you saw in the video, they have a lift uh, to help get from your chair up into the helicopter with assistance from their staff. Highly recommend it. Um, and I've parasailed. I want to do other things, and hopefully we'll be doing some of those things in the near future here in the U.S. as well as with my friend over in New Zealand, Jezza Williams, and everything he's doing at Making Tracks.
Wow. Well, I bow down. No, I take the lighter, easier path, and I'm pretty happy in my hobbit hole in the North Carolinas. So you go get them, Fred.
Oh my gosh. Fred, do you have any closing remarks for us today before we head off to a short 5-minute break?
Just again, want to thank you, Suzanne. Want to thank you, Lorraine, for the opportunity. Want to thank everyone who's joined us today, and again, invite you all to join our community. Our community on journeyable.org, and share information. Be a part of the solution, and let's work together to really make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on today and for sharing your heart, and being open, transparent, and, not getting offended by some of us who don't necessarily know, the journey that different people are having, to have in life.
My pleasure.
Thank you.